All right, today we're diving into some really fascinating and, let's be honest, mind-bending research. It takes the strangest field in all of science, quantum mechanics, and uses it to try and build a framework for some of life's biggest mysteries. We're talking about the nature of consciousness itself and all those weird experiences that just don't seem to fit in our everyday world. And really, the whole thing kicks off with this one profound question. What if the mind, what if you, aren't just locked inside your skull? The framework we're exploring today looks at phenomena that seriously challenge our reality, suggesting that maybe, just maybe, the mind can tap into things outside the normal flow of time, or even outside the brain itself. Okay, so first things first, we gotta get our terms straight. The core concept here is psi phenomena. Now, the work we're looking at doesn't dismiss these things. It treats these reported experiences as genuine anomalies, things that our standard textbook science has a really hard time explaining. And the paper zeroes in on these four main types of psi. This is the whole shebang, from super controversial lab experiments into feeling the future to remote viewing studies and even attempts to see if the mind can influence random number generators. On top of all that, it also folds in survival research, which is all about investigating if consciousness keeps going after we die, looking at things like near-death experiences. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the big problem, then explore 5 wild quantum realities as possible solutions, and see how this whole framework builds, step by step, toward a grand synthesis of physics and consciousness. Let's get into it. So, what is the central problem we're trying to solve here? Well, it's that phenomena like psi, or these really credible reports of consciousness surviving death. They just don't fit. They don't have a place in our standard materialist view of the universe. It's like they're a puzzle piece from a completely different box, which suggests something fundamental is missing from our picture of reality. And this is where things get really interesting. The author brings out this radical new toolkit, quantum mechanics. But here's the twist. It's not just one theory. The whole idea is to explore 5 different interpretations, 5 different lenses, each one proposing a totally different and frankly, very, very strange version of reality. First up, we've got the many worlds interpretation. This idea, which has been around since the 50s, suggests that every single time there's a quantum choice, like an electron zigs instead of zags, the universe splits in two. Both things happen, but each in its own brand new parallel universe. Yeah, it's like reality is a cosmic story that's constantly branching off into an infinite number of new timelines every single moment. Next is pilot wave theory. Now, this one is completely deterministic, which means there's no real randomness at all. Particles always have a specific position, but they're being guided by this invisible pilot wave. And the key word here is non-local. It means this wave somehow contains information about the entire universe all at once, connecting everything to everything else instantly. When there's the transactional interpretation, and this is where time itself gets really weird. It says that any quantum event is basically a handshake between a wave coming from the past, moving forward, and another wave coming from the future, moving backward. Yes, you heard that right. In this model, the future can literally reach back and influence the present. Fourth, we've got quantum consciousness theories. Thinkers like Penrose and Hameroff have championed these ideas. And they argue that the mind isn't just some classical computer made of, wetware. They say that consciousness itself is a full-blown quantum phenomenon, bubbling up from these tiny processes happening deep inside our brain's neurons. And finally, there's the block universe model, which actually comes from Einstein's theory of relativity. In this view, time doesn't really flow at all. Instead, the past, the present, and the future all exist, right now, simultaneously and forever, in one giant, static, 4-dimensional block of space-time. Okay, so we've got 5 incredibly strange, competing versions of reality on the table. The million-dollar question is, which one of these, if any, can actually explain things like psi and the possibility that consciousness survives death? The research basically puts them head-to-head to find out. And here they are, side by side. Let's just look at the columns for a second. The author is grading each model on how well it fits with both psi and survival. You can see right away some models have problems. Look at block universe. It scores very poor on survival because if everything is fixed, consciousness can't really survive anything. But then look at many worlds and quantum consciousness. They both score strong across the board, making them the top contenders. A frontrunner is definitely starting to emerge here. So, after running all 5 models through that test, The paper argues that one interpretation really does stand out from the pack as the most complete and comprehensive solution. So which of our 5 contenders provides the most powerful, the most flexible explanation for this whole range of phenomena, everything from telepathy all the way to near-death experiences? According to this framework, it's the many worlds interpretation. So why? Why does this wild idea of infinitely branching universes provide the best answer? Let's break down the logic. And this really lays out the reasoning perfectly. MWI gives us plausible mechanisms for both psi and survival. Think about it. Precognition, knowing the future, could just be getting a glimpse of a parallel universe where that future has already played out. Survival after death, maybe it's just consciousness persisting or shifting to another branch of the multiverse. And the crucial part is it does all this without breaking the fundamental math of quantum mechanics. But, just picking a quantum model is only half the battle. You can have a multiverse, but that doesn't explain the thing that's actually doing the experiencing, consciousness. So the research then has to ask, what is consciousness, and how does it plug into this multiverse? So the paper pairs the many worlds model with several big philosophical ideas about the mind. You've got everything from dualism, the classic idea of a separate soul, all the way to the one we really need to focus on, non-local consciousness. And that brings us right back to the question we started with, the idea that consciousness isn't just stuck in the brain, but exists in a more fundamental, spread out kind of way. All right, let's put all the pieces together. It's time for the final synthesis. Let's see how all this builds into one unified and, yeah, I'll admit, pretty radical new vision of reality, consciousness, and the deep connection between them. The paper's ultimate conclusion is this: the most powerful, most coherent explanation comes when you combine the many worlds multiverse with a model of non-local consciousness. And why does this specific pairing work so well? Well, because it creates a kind of perfect partnership. The multiverse acts as this vast, infinite landscape of reality, and a non-local mind acts as the explorer that can actually navigate it. Other models really struggle because they can't explain how the explorer and the landscape are even connected in the first place. And this all leads to the core thesis, the big takeaway. In this combined view, things like precognition or telepathy stop being paranormal or supernatural. As the author puts it, they become natural expressions. They're the kind of thing you would expect to see from a consciousness that isn't locked into one single reality, interacting with the infinite possibilities of the multiverse. And this leaves us with a final, absolutely mind-bending thought that this research forces us to confront. If every choice you make, every tiny quantum event in your body is creating a new universe and a new version of you, what does that do to the meaning and the weight of the life you are currently living in this branch, right here, right now?